speak up, they can't monetize any of those instruments on your account, even though their account is a closed account. See, the power is their capacity to claim wardship tenures over your estate. That's why it's important for people to comprehend here and here that you're standing on the rock. If you don't comprehend that, your concept of looking at all this stuff will be absolutely wrong. And then, this is also why it's dangerous for Moors to approach this thing from the European perspective, the freedman's perspective. They're two different statuses, because the sovereign right that they're claiming doesn't belong to them. It's like you or me going to China and claiming to be the sovereign. No, you ain't. And just because some generations have passed, they're still colonists. That's who they are. They're Europeans claiming to be Americans. So therefore their status is what? Void in the first instance. See, because that's what the colonization is the theft of your birthright. And I think a lot of times when people look at this thing, they only look at exploitation from an attitude perspective. They're not recognizing that it has legal and estate implications. They don't look at it with that concept. They look at it as an attitude of them mistreating us, and we got to get them to stop mistreating us. And that's not it. They're claiming your estate.
I'm saying, like, when you tell somebody else that, they think they be like, oh, you better not know no white boy. They ain't going.
Yeah. And the whole deal of this, that's why they claim to be white guys, but they ain't.
Yeah.
We are.
We three white people.
And so they traded places with us. But this is also why it's important for our people to really understand what's going on, because their concepts are wrong. And as long as they can get us to keep on picking up the dogmatic code systems, the connotative linguistics, then we ourselves are what you would call projecting a confirmation of their position. Because we're really the heirs of the estate. The problem of it is we're incompetent because our people don't know they're the heirs of the estate. We're always talking from a beggar position. You can start some Negro program to make sure we got some chips. And then we start marching and praying all over the place. And we're the heirs of the entire estate. And we're talking like the janitor of the garage.
What did you say again about sign as
Oh, we're gonna put that on the board. I'm just talking loosely right now.
Okay.
But ask the questions, that's so, you know, when the people come in so we can all benefit. Because the subject matter, all the questions really boil down to estate. And what we want to make sure when we share the information with each other is that we comprehend that that's what we're talking about. And when certain questions are asked and you don't know that you're really talking about your estate, that means your concept of looking at the answers may not be correct. Or even your concept, I'm good, thank you so much. They look like crunchy.
Okay, because they foreclosed on my house. I filed bankruptcy. They foreclosed on my house. I filed bankruptcy. But then
In the mic.
Yeah. But if you go to the county court and look under the deed, it's still got my name on it, even though the bank.
Because it's yours. Listen, you're going to talk again. Make sure that the audience gets this. This is why everyone's mouth over this. Remember, it's your estate. They're accusing you of abandoning your estate. Are we clear?
Yeah.
Now,
even though
write this down.
With this.
No, I want you to back up because we're going. When we start, we're going to get this on tape because it's important. Because people outside the country and people around the country will look at this information and it will give them a background, even though it may not be directed on the subject matter. So wait, we're going to put it on tape, both the question and the answer.
Now, I was giving you some, I'm with you on a lot of what you're saying because when they sold the property, they published it in the newspaper, in the county paper.
Yeah.
And listening to what you were saying, I was supposed to then.
That's why this is why we emphasize, and we can't emphasize enough, that when you're corresponding with them, this is what we're going to have to do as a standard with us. Make sure y'all take it back to Little Egypt, right? Organize, even with yourself. You understand? Set up a website that's only for publishing your legal correspondences with the corporate state entities. When they're corresponding with you and they're sending things, constructs through the mail to you, when they send it, you construct it, give qualifications, subtitles, or footnotes, and put it on the site. When you send out to them, then you sequence it, meaning that if I never met you, right? Whereas I'm going on a website, just like a newspaper, I can look the sequence of their initial entries to you and your correspondences. So it leaves both the chronology / dates and the nature of their correspondence is not left vague. There's nothing missing. It's exposed to the public eye. Do you understand? They can't hide. Keep in mind, the fundamental operations of the U.S. democracy system of the post-militia operates from the perspective that they know that what they're corresponding to you usually stays within a small pocket, with you stressed out and worried and drinking 2 cups of coffee trying to figure out how to respond, or how to pay up or give up your property, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're really under real pressure, out of ignorance and a lack of knowledge, you go hire a barrister of England thinking that he's going to represent you, and he rapes you some more because you don't know he's an officer of the court. And all he is a bounty man with a tie that you just paid.
That's what
And a
happened.
spy.
Exactly what
Oh, I
happened.
already know what happened. But you need to know what happened.
You need your property.
But you need to know what happened.
Yeah.
You see the whole point?
Yeah.
And from the beginning, they're operating from the perspective that you're a ward. Now, if you have bought, or what you call transacting business, in the European name or cognomen without qualification or without a title of the heir to the estate, you don't own it in the first place. You're sharecropping. You need to know that in the first instance. It's not, this is where it's the duty and the responsibility of those grand sheiks around this country who's been delivered this information and charged with the duty of dispensing it to the heirs of the estate, which is the restoration of the birthright. However, you already know and I already know that most of the such persons have not done that. Instead, they have been making people followers of themselves and telling people this was religion, when it's actually a return of the birthright. Do you understand? And so this corruption has caused us to go a 100-year cycle and suffering in areas that shouldn't even be taking place right now. Therefore, for the few who are honest to what this movement is about, it must be explained what's going on so that you don't go through that. So what do? They steal your estate, and you paid more fiat in the process, and they still steal your estate. Not knowing that the foundation of the problem is your status. You see? And that you didn't even know you had an estate. Go ahead. We want to repeat this for the record because at about 7 we're going to start officially.
Todd, another thing they did was they refused to cut the gas off in my name.
Sure.
It's still in my name. I'm on the gas company.
And
they told me in order for them to cut the gas off, I have to give them access to the place. I said, well, they done locked me up.
Now, do you understand estate law fundamentally?
No.
Do you understand sharecropping fundamentally?
I mean, my
Just
grandfather-
in general, How do you
Something-
feel?
something my
What are your
grandfather did.
thoughts on sharecropping?
It's a robbery.
Get in the mic. Well, we know it's robbery, but what is it? Come on, just talk. What does your consciousness tell you? In other words, use your basic common sense and talk about what you think sharecropping is.
Sharecropping is when you allowing somebody to live on your property and they paying you interest on whatever y'all producing.
No, this is what it is. Sharecropping is a feudal law system, whereas they rob you of your land and estate, put it in their trust, and then rent your land or estate back to you as a tenant or franchisee under privilege, and thereby steal all your labors and your energies until you're no longer useful to them. Then they boot you off the land. And then find another serf. Connotatively, we call them slaves now, but there's a misused word, but for what its connotative meaning is, that's what's happening to you. That's what happens to people over and over again. But because in reality, it is your estate. You just don't know yourself, and you don't know the truth of the land. That's why your name continues, because they're leaning it against your estate. They're acting as trustees on your estate. Therefore, what you say don't count. What they say counts. It is no different than a parent is telling a child that's a drug addict, this is what's going to happen. You say, how can they give my room to Fred? Because they said so. You kind of understand? It ain't about justice. It's about abuse of authority under forfeiture. Forfeiture is a feudal law title for a trustee. This is what's happening. This is why it's so important. You know, we can't emphasize enough. And interesting, like last night,